She texts you all day, then disappears. She flirts, then acts cold. She opens up emotionally, then pulls away like you imagined it all. She hints at a future, but won't even commit to a weekend. You ask what's wrong. She says, nothing. You try harder. She gets colder. You back off. She gets closer again. You start to think maybe it's you. You begin questioning your worth, and all the while she's playing a game, and you're stuck reacting. Comment no more games to show you're done playing along. Number 1. Stay emotionally calm. When someone pulls back, ignores you after showing interest, suddenly disappears after days of consistent texting, when you sense their energy shift for no reason, your first instinct is to panic, to fix it, to figure out what went wrong, to overthink every message you sent, every conversation, to wonder what you did that made them stop acting like they used to. And in that moment you forget the most important thing, that your value doesn't depend on how someone treats you temporarily, that people who play games want exactly that reaction. They want you confused. They want you doubting yourself. They want you to chase, because chasing is a form of control, and as long as you're reacting emotionally to their absence or coldness, they know they own your mind. They know they live rent-free in your head, and the moment you start scrambling for answers, sending long paragraphs, checking if they viewed your stories, thinking of clever ways to make them miss you, you've already lost the game they started. But here's what most people never tell you. The only way to win is not to play, not by being cold, not by acting fake, but by becoming so centered in your life that their inconsistency no longer holds emotional power over you. You train your response not because you're pretending not to care, but because you've grown to a point where you no longer place your peace in the hands of someone who can't even be consistent. You stop asking, why did they pull away? And start asking, why was I giving so much access to someone who hasn't earned it? You learn to let silence speak for you, not out of revenge, but because your focus is too valuable to waste on confusion. You learn to sit with discomfort without reacting to it, and in that stillness, you start to build the strongest skill of all, emotional discipline, and that discipline changes everything, because now, when they ghost you, breadcrumb you, or send a dry response after a week of flirting, you don't rush to respond, you don't go into detective mode, you lean back and let the silence reveal what you need to know, because your worth isn't on trial, theirs is, and the moment you make that shift, you go from being the one who gets tested to being the one who filters. And that's when the game ends. Not when you get the person back, but when you no longer need them to feel okay. When your peace doesn't move based on their actions. When you're so focused on your own growth, your fitness, your finances, your purpose, your goals, that any emotional disruption from someone's cold behavior feels irrelevant because you've built something real within yourself. And every time you resist the urge to react, you prove to yourself that you are in charge of your life, not your emotions, and definitely not someone who can't even decide how they feel about you for more than a week. So instead of checking your phone every 2 minutes hoping they text back, you use that energy to build the habits that elevate your future. Because once you master staying calm in situations that used to trigger you, you unlock a level of clarity most people never reach. And from that place, you no longer crave people, you qualify them. And that's what makes you truly unshakable. And if you're ready to build that emotional strength and finally take control of your relationships and your peace, then the Stoic Relationship Blueprint is exactly where you start. This is not just a book. It's a complete system built on timeless Stoic principles that have transformed lives for centuries, now adapted to your reality. It's made for you, for every moment you felt confused, disrespected, or emotionally stuck. And the best part, it's now available as an audiobook, so you can listen while you walk, jog, train, or even during your daily routine. Every insight becomes part of you, not just once, but for life. Because once you get this book, it's yours forever. Unlimited access to the kind of life-changing knowledge you can revisit whenever life tests you. No more guessing, no more chasing, just clarity, control, and power. The link is in the comments. Get it now. Own it forever. Number 2. Spot her patterns early. You don't get manipulated because you're weak. You get manipulated because you refuse to admit what's happening right in front of you. You ignore the inconsistencies. You downplay the mixed signals. You justify disrespect. You rewrite their bad behavior in your mind and call it just a phase. You see someone pulling back, and instead of recognizing it as a pattern, you call it stress or mood swings, or assume it's your fault. You over-rationalize everything. But deep down you know what's happening, because it's the same cycle you've been through before. The same emotional roller coaster, wrapped in a different person. They come in hot, say all the right things, make you feel chosen, seen, valued, and the moment you start reciprocating, the moment you start caring back, everything changes. They become distant. They slow down replies. They cancel plans. They stop putting in effort. And it's not because they're busy. It's not because they're confused. It's because they want to see if you'll tolerate the drop in effort. And most people do, because most people don't have a standard for how they deserve to be treated. They have a desire for connection, and they'll sacrifice anything for it. Even their peace, even their worth, even their time. But what you need to understand is this. Emotional games always follow a pattern. It's never random. There's a script, and once you learn it, you stop being a character in someone else's game. It starts with over-investment. They flood you with attention, fast bonding, intense texting, making plans that feel too good to be true. And they are. Because right after that comes withdrawal, coldness, flakiness. And if you don't catch it early, you fall into the trap of chasing the high of the beginning, like an addict, chasing something that was never real but meant to hook you. And the moment you take the bait, they know they've got you. Because now you're emotionally invested in someone who's only partially present. They know you'll accept less and less just for the hope of getting more. And that's when the breadcrumbing starts. Just enough attention to keep you hoping. Just enough flirting to keep you thinking something might still be there. Just enough presence to keep you stuck in limbo. And that limbo becomes your prison. You stop moving forward, stop growing, stop focusing on yourself, and you start living for someone else's inconsistency. But the only way out is awareness, not blame, not hate, just pure awareness. Because when you see the pattern, you stop taking it personally. You stop thinking you need to fix it. You start realizing it was never about you. It was about control. And the longer you play along, the more you feed it. So what do? You start watching instead of reacting. You stop assuming and start observing. When someone's behavior shifts, you don't ask, "What did I do wrong?" You ask, "What are they showing me?" And that shift in perspective changes everything. Now you're not the one trying to decode mixed signals. You're the one collecting data, setting standards, choosing whether or not they fit your life. And when the pattern reveals itself, you don't explain it away. You act. You don't wait for it to repeat. You address it or you exit. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Because you value your peace more than the idea of fixing someone else's chaos. And that's what makes the biggest difference. People who break patterns win. People who repeat them stay stuck. And if you've been stuck in the same cycle for years, it's because you keep telling yourself, next time will be different. But nothing changes unless you change what you tolerate. And the sooner you stop falling for chemistry over consistency, the sooner you start living with clarity. And that clarity becomes your power. It helps you see people as they are, not as you want them to be. And that alone can save you years of wasted time. Because now you're not chasing potential. You're filtering for alignment. And when someone shows you through their actions that they're not serious, you don't negotiate. You release, because your time is not a game. Your energy is not disposable. and your future is not up for grabs to anyone who walks in with charm and walks out without commitment. So from now on, pay attention to the patterns, not the promises. Watch how people show up, not how they explain themselves, because actions are patterns, and patterns are proof. And if you're brave enough to see them early, you'll never be stuck again. Number 3. Set clear boundaries. If you keep accepting what makes you feel disrespected, it's not them. It's you, because people will only treat you how you let them. And every time you tolerate something that hurts, something that drains you, something that makes you question your worth, you're silently agreeing to keep the door open for more of the same. And what you need to understand is that boundaries are not about controlling anyone else's behavior. They're about controlling access to you, to your time, to your peace, to your energy. And every moment you allow someone who's inconsistent, who's passive-aggressive, who cancels plans without notice, who treats you like a backup plan, you're showing them that your standards are flexible and your backbone is weak. And deep down you know it, because every time you say nothing, every time you justify their disrespect, every time you stay silent just to keep the peace, you feel it. That quiet bitterness growing inside you, that internal resentment that builds when you betray your own values just to avoid confrontation. And that's what eats away at your confidence, not rejection, not loneliness, but the slow erosion of self-trust that happens when you pretend you're okay with things that hurt you. So the first step to setting boundaries is admitting to yourself what you truly don't want to experience anymore. No more ignoring red flags. No more saying, it's not a big deal, because it is a big deal when someone shows up late, flakes, leaves you on read, gives you mixed signals, or makes jokes at your expense in front of others. And instead of laughing it off or brushing it under the rug, you need to speak, calmly, clearly, not to punish them, but to protect yourself. You say, this doesn't work for me, or I don't accept that, and then you watch what they do. Because people who respect you will adjust, but people who are using you will be offended, and that's when the truth shows up. Not in their words, but in their reactions. And if they push back, guilt-trip you, call you sensitive, or accuse you of overreacting, that's your signal to leave, not to argue, not to explain further. Because when someone doesn't honor your boundaries the first time, they're not trying to understand. They're trying to break them, and the longer you stay, the deeper they dig into your peace, until you forget what healthy even looks like, and you settle for chaos dressed up as chemistry. And that's not love, that's addiction to inconsistency, and it ends the moment you decide that peace matters more than company, that standards matter more than attention, because anyone can like you when you bend over backwards for them. But the ones who matter will stay when you finally stop shrinking to fit into their preferences. So start drawing the line and keep it, and don't move it just because someone smiles at you or gives you temporary affection. You don't reward unpredictability. You don't chase after apologies without changed behavior. And you definitely don't entertain half-love when your full heart is on the line. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first. Setting boundaries will make you feel selfish, guilty, even scared, especially if you've spent years being agreeable. But what's worse? A few minutes of discomfort, or a lifetime of pretending to be okay with less than you deserve? Make the hard choice now so you don't live with regret later, because the more you train yourself to enforce your boundaries without emotion, without fear, without hesitation, the more your life starts to reflect the standard you've been silently begging others to meet. And that's when everything changes. Not because people suddenly start treating you better, but because you stop letting them treat you any worse. Number 4. Don't chase attention. When someone starts pulling away, when their replies slow down, when the warmth in their tone turns cold, when the attention you were getting starts drying up, the average person panics. They start to overthink every word they've ever said. They blame themselves. They try harder, send double texts, post on social media just to be seen, wait by the phone hoping to hear back, convincing themselves it's just a bad day, just a bad week, just a phase. But what they don't see is that this is how you get trapped. You don't get trapped all at once. You get trapped one ignored message at a time, one unreturned call, one, "Sorry, I forgot to reply," that you excuse because you want it to be different, and it never is. Because the moment you chase someone's attention, you teach them they can take it away and still keep you around. You teach them that your effort is constant, even if theirs isn't. And that's exactly why they start treating you like an option, because you're acting like you have no standards, like you need them to validate your worth. But the truth is, the second you feel someone is treating you like an option, the only correct response is distance, because attention should never be begged for. It should be mutual, consistent, and respectful. And when it's not, you don't fix it with more effort. You fix it by walking away, by becoming unavailable to people who confuse you, by shifting your focus from proving your worth to preserving your peace. And yes, at first it'll hurt. It'll feel like rejection. It'll trigger your deepest fears of being forgotten. But that pain is temporary. The pain of staying in a place where you're constantly waiting, constantly hoping, constantly proving. That pain never ends. And the only way out is to stop chasing. Stop initiating with people who show you inconsistency. Stop talking to people who only value you when you pull away. Because that's not connection, that's control. And you don't need more control in your life. You need freedom. And freedom begins the moment you stop needing someone to show up for you the way they did in the beginning. The moment you stop replaying their potential and start accepting their present behavior. The moment you say, "If you don't show up for me with consistency, you don't get access to me at all." Because attention without respect is manipulation, it's bait, and if you take it, you'll spend your life performing just to keep someone who doesn't actually care if you're happy. And that's not love, that's emotional slavery. And the only escape is to stop giving your attention to people who treat it like it's free, and start giving it to your goals, your growth, your path, and your purpose. Because the people worth keeping will notice your silence, they'll notice your absence, and they'll step up without you needing to prompt them. But if they don't, then the silence gave you an answer. Words never could. And in that moment, you win. Not because you got them back, but because you got yourself back. The version of you that doesn't need someone to remind you you're enough. The version of you that respects yourself enough to never chase what walks away from you without reason. So stop explaining yourself. Stop proving your worth. Stop performing just to be seen. And instead, start building a life so full of value that the only attention you need is the one you give to your own progress, your own mindset, your own discipline. Because chasing attention is how you lose power, but detaching from it is how you rise. Number 5. Let her earn your time. If you keep giving time, energy, and access to people who haven't earned it, don't be surprised when they treat you like you're disposable. Because when you hand out your presence to anyone who shows you a little attention, when you give away your emotional investment before they've even shown consistency, you're not being kind, you're being careless. And that carelessness is costing you your peace, your focus, your growth, and the life you're meant to build. Because time isn't just something you spend, it's your most powerful resource. And when you give it to someone who plays games, who disappears, who strings you along with just enough affection to keep you hoping, but never enough commitment to build anything real, you're choosing distraction over direction. And every second you waste on someone who doesn't show up is a second you're not using to level up, to build your vision, to become who you're meant to be. And what's worse is you already know it. You feel it when you wait for replies that come late or not at all. You feel it when they cancel last minute, when they act hot one day and cold the next, and you tell yourself they're just busy or shy or uncertain. But deep down you know they're not unclear, They're just not serious. And if they were serious, you wouldn't have to wonder, because real connection doesn't confuse you. It doesn't make you question your worth. It doesn't make you beg for time or beg for clarity. It shows up. It invests. It proves itself with action, not empty words. And that's the standard you need to start living by. No more giving full access to people who give you half effort. No more trying to convince someone to value what they're already holding, because the moment you have to ask someone to show up is the moment they've already decided not to. And you're not here to convince anyone to see your value. You're here to protect your value and only give it to those who see it without being told. And that starts by being selective. Not bitter, but selective. Because not everyone deserves you. Not everyone is meant to be close to you. And if someone wants your time, your attention, your energy, they should earn it through consistency, honesty, and clarity. And if they can't provide that, they don't get access. And that doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you self-aware, because time is not just minutes on a clock. It's your life. And when you give your life to people who don't respect it, you slowly lose yourself. And one day you'll look back and realize you spent months or years stuck in situationships that never gave back what you put in, relationships that drained you more than they built you, people who liked the idea of you but never showed up for the reality of you. And the only way to stop that cycle is to raise your standard, to look at your calendar and ask, who am I building with and who's just wasting space? Because if someone isn't making your life better, they're making it heavier, and you don't owe anyone unlimited access just because you once felt a spark or shared a few laughs. Feelings are not enough. Chemistry is not enough. Consistency is the minimum, and respect is the baseline. And if they can't meet that, they're not ready for you, and you don't shrink to keep them. You grow beyond them, and the people who belong in your life will either rise with you or fall away. Either way, you win, because your time is sacred, your energy is expensive, and your future is too important to waste on people who can't decide whether or not they want to be part of it. So from now on, don't give unlimited time to people who bring limited effort. Don't prioritize people who treat you like an option, and don't allow access to your heart without proof of reliability. Because you don't chase love. You attract it by becoming so focused on your path that only those walking in the same direction can keep up. That's how you let people earn your time, and that's how you take your power back for good. Number 6. Focus on your life. The reason you keep falling for people who play games, the reason you get stuck in situations that drain you, the reason you feel like you can't move on, isn't because they're special. It's because you've made them the center of your life, while your own goals, growth, and self-respect sit in the background collecting dust. Because the truth is, the second you put someone else above your own mission, your energy becomes dependent on their approval. And that's why you overthink. That's why you tolerate disrespect. That's why you shrink yourself to fit into places you've outgrown. Because your focus is scattered. Because your identity is built on being needed, instead of being built on becoming who you need to be. And what nobody told you is that until you become obsessed with your life, until you wake up every day chasing your potential with ruthless discipline, until your vision becomes louder than your distractions, you will always be vulnerable to emotional games, because a person with no direction is easily swayed, easily triggered, easily manipulated, and the people who want control over you can smell that from a mile away. They know you're bored. They know you're waiting for someone to give you meaning, and they use that against you. But when you start prioritizing your life, your body, your finances, your values, your habits, everything shifts. You stop needing people to show up for you because you're already showing up for yourself, and that self-sufficiency is not arrogance. It's freedom. It's what protects you from getting stuck in situations where you're being emotionally toyed with. Because the truth is, most people wouldn't tolerate what they tolerate if they had something bigger to focus on. But since their schedule is empty, since their vision board is blank, since their purpose is foggy, they end up making someone else their purpose, and that's why they break down over unanswered texts and cancelled dates. That's why they keep going back to people who show them no real effort, because their life has no foundation. And when you have no foundation, you will settle for anything that feels like attention. But when you build a life you're proud of, when you wake up with plans, when you train, when you journal, when you lock into your goals and cut out the noise, you stop being impressed by temporary affection and start demanding permanent respect, because now you're building momentum, and momentum kills neediness. Progress kills anxiety. Direction kills obsession, and nothing is more magnetic than someone who has something to lose, someone who protects their time, who doesn't flinch when people leave, who doesn't chase when people go cold, because they know what they're building is too important to pause over someone who can't even be consistent for a week. So if you want to win this game, stop playing it and start building something they can't play with. Build a routine that keeps you grounded. Build a mindset that can't be shaken by silence. Build a vision so powerful that their confusion doesn't even register anymore. And this doesn't happen overnight. You start small. You start with what you can control, your sleep, your food, your income, your focus. And you stack wins, one at a time, until your life becomes so fulfilling that you don't chase peace from anyone else, because you've already found it within yourself. And when that happens, you don't lose people, you filter them, and the ones who can't meet you at your level start falling off without effort. Not because you pushed them away, but because they can't survive in the presence of someone who's truly focused. And that's how you reclaim your life. Not by fixing someone else, but by fixing your discipline. Not by changing them, but by changing what you give attention to. Because if you give your attention to people who drain you, you stay drained. But if you give it to your progress, you get stronger. And every single day is another chance to choose progress over pain, purpose over patterns, discipline over distractions, and that decision compounds. That decision is what separates those who keep repeating emotional loops from those who break free and build something real. So no more excuses, no more blaming others for your emotional chaos. It's your responsibility now to grow, to focus, to build a life so powerful that no game, no person, no rejection can ever make you question who you are again. If you're tired of being emotionally used, confused, and left with nothing but questions, this is your moment. Society doesn't want you to think for yourself, doesn't want you emotionally disciplined, doesn't want you powerful, because a man who sees clearly, who feels deeply, but reacts with strength, can't be controlled. That's why the Stoic relationship blueprint exists, filled with timeless principles to help you break free, reclaim your peace, and never get played again. And now it's available as an audiobook, so you can listen while walking, jogging, or anytime you need to realign with the truth. No more excuses. It's linked in the comments. Own it now, and it's yours forever. If you're ready to step into clarity and live on your terms, comment, "I choose power," like this video, and subscribe, so more men can escape the trap, reclaim their time, and save themselves from years of silent regret.